welcome back to episode number 81 of Raise the Banner podcast. It is your three co-hosts, as usual, here today. It is a big episode because it is, maybe a sad episode. I don't know how we're really going to get into this, but what was this, Sunday night? Is that correct? Sunday night?
That is correct.
News broke approximately 8 p.m. Ben messaged me because I wasn't on my phone. I was like, yeah, you're lying to me. That's not really happening. I opened up Twitter, and it did happen. Rafael Devers traded from the Boston Red Sox. We knew that this was a possibility based off all the turmoil that they had been going through, but we didn't think that it was A, close to happening, or B, still very likely to happen. But I'm going to open up the floor to you guys first. Ben, I kind of know where you stand on it, so I'll start with you, Zach. What do you make of this? Rafael Devers is a San Francisco Giant.
I mean, in a vacuum, it makes sense to trade him. He was unhappy. He was, the team asked him to do a few things, move off of third base, be a DH, go to first base, and he, obviously was pissed about that. And then they were concerned about him kind of like tainting the locker room, being negative towards their growth of the kids, Anthony, Campbell, Mayer, etc. But it's another example of just the dysfunction and the complete lack of understanding and lack of PR and lack of just good moves that this team has done over the past 10 years. To steal, Matt McCarthy's kind of point, they've made it a point they made a history of trading away Hall of Fame talent dating back 10, 12 years now, whether it's John Lester, whether it's Chris Sale, whether it's Mookie Betts, obviously, and now Rafael Devers. And I'm even going to throw in the Carl Crawford trade. It's not exactly apples to apples, but it helps my story here, and I'm throwing them in as well because I hate this organization. Every time Sam Kennedy opens his mouth, I want to just throw myself off a tall building. I can't stand listening to the guy. He talks out both sides of his mouth. He wants us to believe and buy tickets for us and still keep going to the games. And then he keeps saying that, yes, we're going to keep continuing to, march toward a championship. And look at how great we are in the last 25 years. We've won 4. No one else can touch us. What the hell are you doing to continue that now? What the hell have you done in the last 6 years to continue that trajectory? Nothing. And Craig Breslow, to steal another quote, which is his former scouting, he's a fucking stiff. Every time he opens his mouth as well, it's like all corporate jargon. There's nothing imaginable that like is relatable. It's another one of these Sam Kennedy clones who's trying to just do what Theo was capable of, which was actually be a baseball general manager. And we'll see what happens at the deadline if they actually are going to trade for a bat or trade for any talent, or if they're going to keep pushing this guy, James Woods or whatever he is, the prospect that, again, we're back here talking about prospects. Like, we'll see what happens. I don't believe that they're actually going to make a move because every time I believe them, they do something like this and completely pull me right back into hating them again. But it's a frustrating situation. One that, again, I understand in the vacuum why they had to do it. But at least get something. At least get something, some sort of major league talent, some sort of player who's going to continue winning you ball games, and not 2 minor league players and a guy with a 6 ERA. Rants over for now.
All right, Ben, you're up.
So I'm very anti this trade. I'll echo Zach's point. I was not completely closed off the idea of trading Devers. I don't want to say the trade makes sense, because this trade doesn't make sense. In a broad sense, the trading of Rafael Devers could make sense if you could justify the return when moving him, right? it reported come out that apparently the Red Sox had asked for Bryce Eldridge. The Giants were like, absolutely no way. And so they didn't shop him, which there's a rumor that supposedly they contacted this other team. It hasn't been released, so who really knows how legitimate this claim is. There was another trade offer on the table that Breslow was trying to get. It involved eating money on the Devers deal. Henry vetoed it, so he found that the only other deal that he had discussed with anybody and pulled the trigger. Devers he's not 30. He is, by metrics, he is the 8th best hitter in baseball. By today's standards financially, he is not an expensive baseball player. You pay players top of the market money. Let me rephrase. You pay position players top of the market money because of what they do in the batter's box, not what they're doing in the field. Obviously, the most expensive players, i.e. Juan Soto, gets a massive contract because he's still good defensively and he's a top 5 hitter in baseball. Devers got a decent contract for the time, but it wasn't elite top of the market money because people knew that eventually he was either going to have to become a first baseman. And then if that didn't work, he was going to have to be a DH. And it's like, well, $30 million or $31 million a year for a DH is not necessarily, oh my God, that's astronomically expensive. It's not cheap either. It's tough to have this debate, but like Juan Soto 6-7 years from now is probably going to be a $55 million DH. I realize that that's not exactly an apples to apples comparison, but it will be, in 5 to 8 years. The trade still doesn't make any sense to me. I get that Devers wasn't willing to play ball with the team. I get that. I'd be frustrated too. I feel like there should have been some kind of a common ground. There was a report that came out yesterday that he was willing to play first base, but he wanted an assurance from the organization that if he was going to transition to first base, that they weren't just going to use him every once in a while and just be like, yeah, like spend all this time committing to learn a new position and, you'll play it twice a week. He wanted assurances that it was going to be, you'll be the primary first baseman. And then, if you need a day off, Toro or Romy will play. Or, if we need to get these guys in because of matchups, we'll have you DH once or twice a week, something to that effect. So again, Devers wasn't willing to be flexible at all, but this felt a lot like John Henry basically having his feelings hurt, feeling butthurt that Devers wasn't willing to play ball based on the fact that he's a top paid player in baseball and the most expensive player on the roster, and that meant he should be willing to do what's best for the team. It just felt like John Henry's feelings were hurt, and he's like, well, I'm just fed up with him, and he's like, just get rid of him. There hasn't really been a confirmed report that I'm aware of that definitively says one way or the other if, John Henry and Sam Kennedy knocked on Greg Breslow's door and they were like, Devers needs to go now, or if Breslow went to them and said, hey, I know that I know that, Devers has been a problem. I have an opportunity where I can move him. This is what I've got. Can I pull the trigger? It's probably a little bit of both. It felt like, based on the fact that allegedly Henry vetoed a trade that would have been eating money, feels a lot like it was more ownership, basically telling Breslow he had to trade him, and here are the parameters in which you can move him, aka we don't want to deal with him and we don't want to pay him. Kind of sends a mixed signal that you're not willing to pay somebody a little bit of money so you can get a better return, but you're still willing to dish out decent contracts. Matt and I had that conversation yesterday that, they just paid Garrett Crochet, 7-year, $140 million deal or whatever the contract worked out to be. He okayed the Story deal, but then he's not willing to eat money on a Devers deal to make the team better. They do all for not shopping him at all. Just basically calling up a couple teams being like, hey, we're trying to get rid of Devers. He's a problem in the locker room. He's not playing ball with us. We're looking to get rid of him and just give him a fresh start. We need to move on because, he's poisoning the clubhouse, as opposed to trying to find the best deal possible. I fault him for that. And then I fault him for admitting, well, not just admitting, but because he admitted that this trade made the team worse. That's 100% on Breslow. That was him just taking whatever he could get because they needed to get rid of Devers for whatever reason. So I throw blame on him for not doing what's best in the best interest of the organization. They did what was in the best interest of them and the PR and the negativity that supposedly was clouding Devers. I wish him all the best. Obviously, he came right out and said that he's willing to play ball with the Giants and play wherever they need him to, which is kind of a shot at the Red Sox organization to be like, again, different GM, but like this organization isn't lying to me. They didn't guarantee me that I will be moved off of third base, and you guys did. Felt like a little bit of a shot at the Red Sox. It's not like I don't feel like he totally forced his way out. He didn't do himself any favors either. So, wish him the best. It's really going to suck watching him absolutely dangle his jockstrap on us this weekend when we go over to San Francisco, because it's coming. Because Garrett Crochet's throwing right now. Last I checked, he was absolutely dealing up in Seattle. 6 innings, 8 Ks, 1 run, no walks, 6 hits, like ace type stuff, right? So now they're going to be getting into, I don't know how the rotation rolls out for the weekend. They're not getting Giolito or Bueller, so what they're going to get Dobbins and whoever and Bayo. So, but like that Devers is probably going to put one in McCovey Cove. At some point. Couple of just random breaking news things that I'll end with, not to totally go off topic. The LA Lakers were sold for $10 billion about 10 minutes ago. Largest sale of a franchise ever. They sold directly to the owner of the Dodgers. And then the other thing is that Shedeur Sanders, in all his infinite wisdom, was cited driving at 101 miles an hour early Tuesday morning, probably after leaving one of the only good bars in Cleveland. It's a shame Devers isn't here. I never really ruled it out that we would have traded him eventually. The circumstances suck. I kind of feel like my dog got run over. I think I audibly, very loud, said "what the fuck" 50,000 times on Sunday, being like, "Wait," I was like, "This has got to be a parody account. This isn't real." Like, we just swept the Yankees. We're in the playoffs. We're 500 for the first time. What feels like a month. You pulled Devers off the plane to make the trade like that. It just didn't feel real. It still doesn't feel real. It's really unfortunate that feelings took precedent over a winning product. But I think that, that's kind of where we're at. As long as John Henry's happy and he's making money, which he clearly is, I don't think he values a winning baseball team like he used to 20 years ago.
Yeah. Is it really that shocking when that's all this team cares about is PR and feelings? Like Breslow, that's all he cares about is how he comes across.
Yep.
I'm out on him already. But I have the rant coming.
Yeah, so there's 2 parts of it for me. I think this was started from a lack of communication with ownership. Ownership failed and management failed to properly communicate with Devers throughout the beginning of the offseason, and into spring training. They should have been more upfront with him about saying, like, hey, if the opportunity presents itself, we're going to consider upgrading at third base defensively, and that would mean you move to DH type of thing. Weeding through the comments that were in the reports that were made, the whole, like, if he would have been okay moving to first, sorry, that's my dog proceeding to squeak in the background, but if he was willing to move to first as long as it was like permanent, I think that's kind of bullshit, because at the time, like, it was, Costas was still healthy, right? Costas was planning to be the full-time DH at that point. And on top of that, the dude sucked defensively at third. So, like, why are we going to guarantee you and promise you that you're going to stick at first? And if you just suck there, then we need to upgrade there defensively too. So I don't think that he necessarily, performance-wise, deserved that type of promise. So I don't really like that aspect of it. Like I said, I think that ownership deserves a big portion of the blame because they're the one that started the issue in the first place.
Yep.
That being said, I think this is
end of story. You can wrap it up there.
No.
You need to rest.
It's
That being said, Devers handled this like a little bitch. I think that's kind of like the nicest way to put it.
Yeah.
All right, like when we, when you ask a player to switch positions in the MLB, what is it? I would say 95% of the time there's no real issue, right? 95, and of the 95, like 75 of them do it as happy as can be. Sure, whatever's best, great, I'll do it. There's about 5% of players that throw a hissy fit, and it's such a big problem. Devers fell into that 5%. So then they talk about the whole with the spring training thing. He refusing to work out at first and third. Like, again, as much as ownership, and I'm not like giving them like an escape from this because F John Henry as much as anybody else, but Devers had the opportunity.
We're all
to
adults
make
here.
this-
You can say the word fuck. We're all adults here.
Yeah.
That's
Devers had the opportunity to make this a non-issue, right? If he came into spring training and just said, you know what, like what's best for the team is Alex Bregman is going to be our third baseman. I'll work out some at both corner spots. I'm going to probably be the primary DH, but I'll get some field time here and there. It would have been a non-issue at that point, right? It never would have got to that. Instead, he acted like a little bitch. He fought it every step of the way. He requests trades. He refuses to practice at certain positions. He supposedly gets butthurt that Christian Campbell is practicing then at first base. Altogether, he handled this incredibly bad. And so I look at it and I say, like I said, ownership holds a big portion of the blame.
70%.
But like Devers had the opportunity to just like, okay, even if he was upset or pissed off at ownership, to say, you know what, like what's best for the team is me not being at third. And if he can't see that when you sign Alex Bregman, I'm sorry, but you're delusional. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I
was just gonna say, I know that this was a lot of like local media hit pieces, but if you remember during the offseason, specifically when it came to like the Bregman saga had like really been drawn out. He clearly wasn't getting the offers he had hoped for, and they were linking him to the teams that realistically could use him. If you remember, I'll go so far as to say is the vast majority, because there might be one out there that did fall into this category. The vast majority of like, if the Red Sox, do get Alex Bregman, here's your projected lineup. The vast majority of those projections did not have him playing third. So I don't know if they went to Devers and said, hey, we're looking to sign Bregman, and as of right now, we don't have a second baseman. So if we sign Bregman, he's going to play second. Like, I don't know how much.
That happened too, yeah.
So I don't know if that conversation ever happened. It's plausible, but
like, was it confirmed or was it just reports? I don't know, but I remember hearing that too.
It was definitely not confirmed that he would be. There was just like, because the team wasn't talking about it like directly, they're not going to say, hey, if we sign this guy, this is what's happening. Everyone was speculating because they didn't have a concrete answer at second base.
Yeah.
Right. So that was part of it. And I get that. And if that did happen where they said that, Bregman would play third, again, like that's poor communication. And that's where some of the blame goes on ownership. But I don't think that specifically happened. And we haven't heard that directly that it did happen either.
No, it wasn't confirmed. But like, I think to go back to who gets blame, I mean, I don't know if it's 70%. I'm going most of the blame is on Breslow for this. Like, he came in, acted like your mom's new boyfriend living in the house, and he just starts bossing everybody around as if you're going to do what you're told. And Devers is like, bro, I've been here for almost 10 years now. Like, I'm the third baseman. Like, you got to kind of come off that. You also told me that I wasn't going to, be pulled off third base. Now all of a sudden you're switching it up. Like, fuck you. So I get where
Breslow never told him that.
Never told him that he would be the number one.
Breslow didn't extend Devers.
No, the assurance came from Chaim Bloom and ownership when Bloom extended him.
Then where was then that even adds more to Cora's blame, share the blame pie for him to not be communicating with that.
Like, look, whoever promised Devers it in the first place and that part of the contract, like that was a mistake in doing that. So I mean, I don't know who exactly did that. So it's tough to like dish out blame in that end of things. But like this is again like reality, right? There's a level of self-awareness that every person has. Some have it more than others. It's not an opinion that Devers is mediocre at best defensively.
No.
It's a fact, right? And he's led the league third baseman in errors like the last 7 years. Like it is a
Hashtag
fact
facts
that
don't care about feelings.
yeah, it's a fact that he was pretty shitty at third base. So again, I understand whether you're like he has to know. Like this is common sense that he was not going to be the long-term third baseman in terms of like years into the future. Now, did it happen quicker? Yes. Like so, like maybe he's a little frustrated at that, but we knew freaking last year when the extension came down that like we were talking, okay, maybe he'll be the third baseman for 3-4 years, and then they move him to DH. We knew that he was going to be a DH for the second half of that contract.
Yeah.
And there's this narrative that like Devers was promised, and it's such like I get it. It's very easy to just blame ownership, and they do hold plenty, like a lot of the blame, because we're all pissed at them for the last handful of years. But like when I look at this situation, and I talk about the fact that you're getting paid as much as you are, so like shut up and like shouldn't you want to be doing what's best for the team? If your goal is to really try to win as many games and win championships, and that's what's mattered, right? Devers bitched that they haven't had enough talent in recent years. What did Breslin do? He went and got Garrett Crochet. He's been arguably a top 5 pitcher in baseball. What did they do? They need a right-handed bat. They went and got a right-handed power bat. It just so happens that right-handed power bat also played the same position. And that's what's really upset with him. And speaking of Bregman, they were talking about it today, a little tidbit of during the press conference to interview him, Devers was seen walking by the press conference while other players were inside the press conference watching it. Devers was seen walking through the halls past the press conference and just in a pissed off mood, because clearly he was not happy about the signing, right?
And no, but I mean, I can't say I would blame him. I mean, again, poor behavior, but I wouldn't say I blame the guy for being upset about it.
There is, and this is where the blame kind of like the conversation really kind of splits into what's proper and what's not in terms of reactions. It's understandable to be frustrated. It's understandable to be a little annoyed, but like, again, ultimately, what is his goal? Is his goal to play the field or win games? Is his goal to be the center of attention or win games? Because I'll tell you this, he wants to be treated like the best player and given all these, benefits and like leashes defensively when he really sucks. But he doesn't want to take the time to be the face of the franchise. He doesn't want to take the time to be the media guy. He doesn't want to take the time to do all the charity things and all the PR stuff that it comes with being, the face of the Boston Red Sox. And, again, I don't personally give a fuck if you don't speak English, but like, even that's a basic thing where his lack of interest in even seemingly learning English shows how little he cared about being the franchise of the team, but yet he wants to be treated like it, right? So if you want
just to play devil's advocate, are you gonna call out Shohei Ohtani for the same thing?
Shohei Ohtani does a ton of press.
Shohei Ohtani doesn't speak English. So you're going to call him out because he doesn't learn English. He speaks in his native tongue with a translator. Are you going to call out every other Japanese player that played for the Boston Red Sox that didn't learn English?
If he wasn't, well, what other Japanese player in Boston was the face of the franchise? Dice K was
no,
there was
That's
no
no.
face.
it was just a
But Shohei Ohtani does a ton of press. Shohei Ohtani does a ton of marketing. He is the full face of that team. And like I said, if Devers
I just wouldn't call him out for not learning English. Like that's
it's not that it's not the biggest thing. It's just like it's adding on to what I'm talking about with the other things. Like I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, you don't learn English.
Then don't make him the face of the franchise. Breslow, go find someone else to be the face of the franchise and let him continue.
All right,
to
well, don't act
every single year. Like,
don't act like you don't want to get treated, and don't expect to be treated like the face of the franchise.
I mean,
right?
Devers isn't absolved of blame.
I don't think Devers ever carried himself in a way that he was like, I'm the face of the team. He kind of did the opposite. He never wanted the limelight. He's like, I'm a quiet, reserved guy. I don't want to have my face with a bunch of microphones and cameras on it. Like that's not who I am. I hear what you're saying, but I don't necessarily think that other than him being entitled because of the big contract he got in 2023, before the 2023 season, other than a sense of entitlement that he got with the contract, I don't know as if he really ever acted like somebody who wanted to be treated like the face of the franchise.
I don't think he ever did want to be the face of the franchise. I think that was reported
in what
came out a long time when Juan Soto was debating on coming here.
So what gives him the entitlement to refuse to play first base?
He's the most tenured guy on the team. He's won a World Series. What the fuck has Breslow ever done besides be a mediocre pitcher in his life?
I mean, in the end, the GM's in charge of the players.
He is, but like he came, like I said, he kind of came in hot, and he was like bossing everybody around. And I go, he's the GM. I know it's kind of the job of him to boss everybody around, and it's the job of the players to take it. But at the same time, I get where he's coming from, Devers, in the sense of like, I've been here 10 years. I've been on third base forever. Like, maybe not you, but I was given assurances that I'd be on third base. Like, now you're coming in and switching the whole thing up. Like, go pound sand. And now, was that the right move as well? No.
No.
But I think
the bigger problem is it was the correct move, right?
The
correct move to take him off third.
But I feel like you could have handled. I feel like you could have handled it better, though. And I'm not going to sit here I'm not going to sit here and say that I was in the room listening to how Breslow approached Devers about the situation. Obviously, we're only going off of what the Millikins and the Carabases and the Felger and Nazes and the other Red Sox guys out there saying that this is what happened, right? We can only go off of what they say because they're the ones that are at least next to the room, but they're not in it. So it feels like Breslow, in hindsight, probably could have handled that initial conversation better to say, hey, I understand that you were given some assurances by the prior administration that, signing this deal didn't mean they were just going to, as soon as the ink was dry, bump you off to third base and pump you over to DH. However, that may not have been an assurance I would have given you, but we do have to assess what is in the best interest of the team. And it may come down to the idea that because we do need to improve defensively, that what's in the best interest of the team is that you're not our primary third baseman anymore. As opposed to now, and I don't know, I mean, who knows, right, how that conversation went.
Yeah.
But based on his reaction and how visceral it was, it felt like the reaction of a guy who was just told, you're not good defensively, we're trying to replace your glove. Yeah. That it came off like as aggressive, and to the point more so basically being like, hey, you suck defensively, we're going to replace your glove, as opposed to, we have to look at all aspects of how to make this team better. And that means that we can't guarantee that your spot at third base is that you primarily won't play third. And if we can, and at the time, now granted, we're talking a year ago when Bregman was not a free agent, and say that, if the opportunity presents itself where we can land a very, a good defensive third baseman who also makes our offense better, that might be our better move at third. It's like, and I think that goes back to your point of there seems to be a lack of transparent communication from the get-go. And I think it obviously it boiled over. It came to a head this offseason because they basically didn't talk to Devers about anything. And that just one day at the end of the offseason, it was, all right, we signed Alex Bregman and he's our third baseman. You're our DH now. And I went back and forth because on one hand you have the idea that, well, if you go to Alex Brett, you go to Devers and say, hey, there's guys on the market who improve our team defensively at third, who can also hit. We're in the market for a couple of those guys. So just, want to be open, let you know that, we might have an opportunity to do that. And that means you wouldn't be our primary third baseman anymore. So you have that option on one hand. So now it's like, okay, you're telling your most tenured player and a highly paid guy on the roster, a guy that his teammates love. He was, at least a year ago, he was well respected and well liked by the locker room. That
seemed too upset that he was gone.
So, but I don't think that was directed. I don't think that was necessarily directed at his teammates. I think that was more of a shot at ownership in Breslow. So you have that, right? So, but then if you play the tape to the end, say you don't sign Bregman or trade for Arenado, it's like, okay, well, you told Devers that you didn't think he was good enough defensively to be a primary third baseman. You tried to acquire a replacement for him who could also help us offensively. You didn't do that. So now you go back to Devers and say, hey, like, we need you to play third base. Well, now you have an already disgruntled player who was who anticipated the odds, the chance that he would be replaced at third base, now being given that spot back. But that's weird. But then on the other hand, if you accomplish the goal of finding a replacement and you go to him and say, hey, we're able to swing a deal and we're signing Alex Bregman and we feel like he's the best option for us at third base. We'd like to have you go play somewhere else, defensively, or be the primary DH. There's pros and cons to both sides, and oftentimes, as I'm sure you guys have heard, it's I would say more often than not better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission.
It's the art of communication.
It's tricky, but yeah, it all comes back to communication. That's tricky. So yeah, go ahead, Zach.
It's the art of communication that is like it comes with the territory of being an established GM, which we have not had because we keep firing the people that Sam Kennedy hires as first-time GMs. Chaim Bloom didn't have the communication with other teams, and now we see Breslow doesn't have the communication within his own locker room. So, like, yes, he could have navigated the conversation in a way where, like, hey, as of right now, you're a third baseman. I understand you were given assurances by the previous regime. We're not looking to move you off anytime soon. That being said, if Alex Bregman comes available and does want to come to this team, we think he could be better at third base and you at DH. What are your thoughts on that? Again, if we don't get Bregman, you are still our third baseman or an Arenado or whatever. Like, there's a way to go around it without just ignoring the fact that you want to talk about it. And Breslow admitted that. He admitted on that sham of a Zoom call Monday night, Tuesday, Sunday night, whatever it was.
Monday morning, yeah.
Whatever the one at 8 p.m. was, that they tried to bury again because it's.
That was the one it didn't get released until Monday. Maybe that was
it. I saw it live. That's the one that McCarthy asked, like, why do you guys keep trading away?
Yeah. So, gotcha. I was talking about the Zoom call where it was Breslow, Kennedy, and a guy that I don't remember that they did.
This one was just Breslow and Kennedy with a bunch of reporters. But he admitted, he's like, no, there's a lot of things I could have done wrong. I replay that in my head all the time about what could have been done. So he admitted that he sucks at this, and he admitted that obviously it has to get better. So that's proof that it's like you kind of made your bed, and now you have to lie in it. Like, of course, Devers is pissed off at you because you don't know how to talk to people. You just think that you can sit behind a computer and do your little algorithm stuff and expect everyone to fucking follow along with you. Like, it's not how it works. That isn't how human beings work. Like, I get it, and in the aggregate, it's better for the team and everything else. But, like, again, art of communication, and it makes, like, your life a lot harder if you don't know how to effectively build a team and build a cohesive roster.
So in terms of, like, the relationship between Breslow and Devers, I agree that that's where the better communication could have helped things flow better. But I kind of propose a question back to you guys in the sense of, if you're at your job and your boss comes to you and says, we we are considering upgrading from you, but if we can't find someone better than you, then we'll stick with you. Or they come up to you and say, you suck at your job, we're going to find someone who can do it better than you. Will you interpret those slightly different? Yes.
Very.
In the end, though, you know that they don't think you're good enough at your job. That they know, you know that they want to replace you. And those feelings of displeasure that Devers clearly have would have probably been there regardless. Now, would they have been as bad if the relationship between Breslow and Devers personally were better? Probably. But excuse me. But I think it's kind of
brutal.
Too much A&W.
Cream soda, I hope.
Is that what that was? I was wondering what that can was.
It's this one's a root beer.
I thought it was a regular.
Was that a root beer zero sugar there, buddy?
Yeah.
Watching your girlish figure, I see.
I'm always a zero sugar.
Makes them less gaseous, but it hasn't worked yet.
Yeah. But no, like it goes back to kind of just like I think we're tiptoeing around like Devers just being soft. And again, like
he definitely should have.
I'm not like excusing, like Breslow did fuck up, ownership did fuck up. They certainly deserves like a good amount of blame into all this. But and maybe this is just me, like I like playing devil's advocate, especially online. But
you play devil's advocate? Never.
Yeah. But
I do the same thing
like,
for the record.
The amount of people, you do it deliberately just to piss me off. But
every once in a while it is deliberate just to tug a little bit on the
yeah, well that's when I usually tell you to let me know when you're done being know what.
No, usually it's a like, really, Ben, I'm not in the mood for this. Go away. I get that a lot.
Yeah, like shut your mouth. Like Ben, he makes like he could have handled this completely different. And I think in the big picture of all this, like they're grown men. Like I know Devers isn't that old, but like you're a grown man, dude. Like face the reality of like. Because the comment was like, oh, it wasn't what they said, it was how they said it. Like, that was like one of the reports about it. And it's like, dude, like, you were upset of how they said things to you?
Yeah. Look, I'm never going to come to the aid I'm never going to back up this front office. I hate everyone in it. And I especially hate all the stiffs they hire as GMs. So I'm obviously just naturally a more players, I guess, defender. But yeah, like I've said before, like Devers definitely deserves a piece of the blame. He should have just either used Breslow's words as motivation and said, "You don't believe in me? Like, okay, watch this. Let me prove to you why you're wrong. We don't need a Breckman or whatever," or just sucked it up. He didn't, and it was caused by Breslow's words, his tone, or however he said it. And it was caused by just the fact that John Henry's cheap and hates paying people more than 2 years at a time. But
basically, Devers' feelings got hurt.
Yes.
And instead of manning up and saying like, I'm gonna show you, or manning up and saying, I'm getting paid $33 million or $31.5 million a year, I'll DH, which like. You pay the dude to hit, like DHing in the MLB when you're good is pretty freaking sweet. Like you don't have to play the field.
I think it was Breslow getting his feelings hurt, saying, "You don't do what I say, get the hell out of here. Then you're not going to be a part of this team." I think it was him trying to like big dick everybody and be like, "I'm the man." But now.
If Devers didn't Breslow's biggest issue was the lack of communication from the front from the start. And that could have been like not so much being scared, but like not wanting to face the confrontation with Devers. But like trading him, like if there wasn't a lot of I don't feel like there was a lot of Breslow being hurt behind it because it was Devers who was the one that got hurt from the lack of communication. and Devers the one saying, well, F you, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. Because and once he did that, other than, I guess, trading him, there's not much of a reaction that Breslow could have done.
Yeah, I feel like the feelings component feels more like an ownership. And I don't know if it's Henry, Kennedy. I mean, I don't even know. It's probably not Warner. I don't even know if he's still alive at this point. I think he just hides in his office, and he comes out in February to tell us how many more weeks of winter there is. Maybe, I don't know. Just to kind of touch back, Matt, you brought up the whole, like, the analogy of, like, what do you do if your boss comes to you and says, we're looking to replace you versus, hey, we found somebody to replace you. In either scenario, and this isn't like this isn't like a hot take, but in either scenario, like, if I was in this position, I'd be like, especially if I'm in the scenario where they're like, hey, your performance hasn't been great. We are actively looking for somebody to take over your position. I would immediately start looking for another employer, like, because it's like, okay,
exactly,
well,
it's like, though. So we talked about that would have been the nice way to go about it.
No.
Like, it's a little different in the major leagues, obviously, but like,
no, but there's a difference between saying your performance is lacking, we're actively looking to replace you, compared to we're going to do what's in the best interest of the team. If that means we have an opportunity, if that one of those opportunities means bringing in somebody who plays third base, and we have to evaluate who's going to be our third baseman. It might not be.
But we all know what that really means in the end.
I mean, I understand.
We're all grown adults here. If someone tiptoes around it's just tiptoeing around the reality.
No, I know that, but if you're Devers in this situation, and your two options are, hey, your defense at third base isn't up to snuff anymore. We're looking to replace you. We're going to move you to DH. And if we can't, you're still going to be the third baseman. Your reception to that is going to be less so compared to them saying, hey, we're going to evaluate every position on the field, and if an opportunity arises to make the team better that involves us bringing in another third baseman, that's you feeling like, okay, they respect me enough to recognize that the betterment of the team matters more than me, and they're willing to say that if the opportunity arises that the conversation needs to happen versus we are actively looking to replace you. There's a level of respect and professionalism in both directions that is a result of them saying we have to look at the big picture versus you're the problem, we're singling you out, you will be replaced, preferably be replaced.
And
otherwise,
that's where ownership messed up.
Yeah, so, and I'm not saying that they should have, and I'm not saying it wasn't we're looking to replace, we're going to try to replace you, but you're the third baseman if we can't. And then, oh, hey, we found your replacement, like those being the only two options. I was speaking more on the other side of you have to approach the player and say, like what Zach said, and I know I touched on it too, that, the prior regime, the prior administration had explained to you that once you signed this deal that you weren't just going to be bumped off of third base. But we are going to approach this from what is the best option for the team, and that nobody's position is guaranteed, and that if for the betterment of the team, moving, signing a Gold Glove caliber third baseman who also hits, and figuring out, okay, where does everybody best slot into the defensive alignment and the lineup? Or if you have a situation where, we have to figure out what to do with the outfield. If we trade somebody in the outfield because that is for the betterment of the team, like if they went to somebody like Rafaela and said, hey, we're trying to figure out the best thing for the team. We've got Roman Anthony coming up. He's a left fielder by trade. We're going to look at everything, but it might involve you becoming more of a utility platoon player, because if he comes up, we have to figure out, okay, if he's going to play left and we've got Willier and right, now we have to figure out what's our best move at center, because we have Jarren Duran, who is a Gold Glove finalist at center. You're a good defensive center fielder. We've got other guys on the bench. Like if you went to Rafaela, like granted, Rafaela is not a superstar player. He's probably not going to pout around, because if he pouts around, he's more easily expendable than somebody like a Devers. I just feel like that's a more professional way to approach it, where the player becomes more receptive to
is.
change than just, hey, this is a problem with your game. We have to fix it. Expect to not be here moving forward.
Let's break it down. Let's keep it like very simple. The Red Sox mistake was the initial communication through the whole signing Bregman process. But what they did, the mistake that they made, shouldn't be as big of an issue as it is. Even if...
Can you say that again?
So, like, they made the mistake of poor communication and how they went about it and all that.
Yep.
Like, the mistake that they did make shouldn't have been that big of a situation, right? The average player in this scenario would have been like they would have voiced some displeasure, but like the heavy majority don't throw a fit and end up to the point where you want to leave the organization that you've been on for your entire career. And so like that's where it's like I do think that Devers deserves a bigger portion than people want to give him. And it's that sense of it is if Devers took this like a child, he responded to all of it like a child, he threw demands and refusals like a child, and then had the overall opportunity to I guess I don't want to say be the bigger person because I don't think that's the right like way to describe it, but he had the opportunity to just like not make it that big of a deal and move on and accept it like how it's going to be. And he could still be a Boston Red Sox right now and things would have been perfectly fine.
I think what's tricky though is there's a different level of expectation when it comes to superstar players. And I get that, yes, in a broad scope, the average player is going to be receptive to change more than they are not.
But when star players switch positions all the time.
Right,
I understand. True. Yes, I'm not saying that they.
Miguel Cabrera.
True.
Yes. Hold on. Let me get there. But
no.
The difference though is, and this is kind of where I understand at least where Devers comes from is, in 2023, ownership says, "Hey, we're going to give you the contract we think that you deserve. You've been a big part of this team. You helped us win a World Series in 2018, and we want you part of our future. And part of that means, we understand you're a third baseman, and this isn't just a sign on the dotted line, and then we're going to boot you." And then a year and a half later, the tune changes, and he gets multiple mixed signals from, well, I understand a different CBO, but the same ownership group that agreed to pay him and agreed with the prior GM to not bump him off a third. So like the mixed signals thing, I understand that. But for the same reason that the communication component was blown out of proportion, like how much that impacted this, I think that Devers blew it out of proportion as well, because his reaction didn't necessarily need to be as negative and visceral as it was. Where I think that he also needs to understand that while, yes, it's the same ownership, it's a different president of operations, it's a different player development staff, it's a different direction of the organization. That he also needs to be receptive to the idea that, when your boss changes, because realistically, the GM is the boss of the players. The manager fills out the lineup card for the most part. But at the end of the day, your GM, your president of baseball ops, your chief baseball officer, your whoever, whatever title, is the one who makes player personnel decisions. He's the one that says, we've got a hole at this position. We have to fix it. We have a surplus of guys at this position. So let's figure out who can we move on from? Like, who can we trade and bring in pieces that we're missing? Like, it falls on them, right? So his boss, in essence, is Breslow to a degree. So to bring it back to your point, Matt, about like if you use, the three of us, any regular Joe Schmo 9-to-5 guy who's got a boss. Well, if your boss leaves and another boss comes in, and then the boss comes in and says, hey, like, I'm going to do things differently, you can expect negative reactions if you all of a sudden throw pens and paper and blow up your office, metaphorically speaking. Like, just throw shit all over your office because you're pissed off that your boss is changing how the office is going to be run. Like, you can expect there to be negative reaction to that. So that's where I fault Devers, is the degree in which he was so against change, knowing full well that, well, it's a new direction with the organization. So
And he also sucked at his job.
and
Like,
so
that's
Yeah,
the issue. It's not like he was like an average, decent, middle of the pack defensive third baseman.
Correct.
He sucked defensively.
yeah,
And
which to your point,
and not only that, his replacement was a Gold Glove guy.
correct. And so, to that point, if you had to guess, well, first of all, this is kind of surprising. So, according to Fangraphs, only 14 third basemen qualified statistically at third base, which is very odd that it's that few. Across baseball, not just the American League, only 14 third basemen had enough innings at third to be a qualifying third baseman. I shouldn't say, I don't know if it's innings or games, but if you had to guess, so of the 14 third basemen who qualified statistically
Last year,
2024, where do you think Devers, and Devers was one of them, where do you think he ranked defensively specific to fielding percentage?
Based on your question, 14, 13?
So he was tied for 11th. Only one player had a worse. He was tied with Alec Baum and Austin Riley with a 960 fielding percentage. The only qualifying third baseman that had a worse fielding percentage than him was Isaac Paredes, who had a 948 fielding percentage. If you go off of the advanced metric, and we can go off of two, if you go off of UZR, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, I understand that it's ultimate zone rating. Rafael Devers ranked last of the 14 qualified third basemen with a negative 3.3 UZR. To put it in perspective, the top qualifier was Ryan McMahon with a 9.7. Bregman had a 2.2, and Arenado was a 0.4. If you go by defensive WAR, he was one of only two of those 14 qualifying players that had a negative defensive WAR, and he finished last with a negative defensive WAR of 1.7. Matt Chapman led baseball with a defensive WAR of 11.5. So defensively,
on top of that,
so I was adding to your point of so at best, and I think this is a fair statement, at best, he is nothing more than a serviceable defensive third baseman at his peak. That's his ceiling.
In 2022, he was negative 2 outs against average, which is 26th percentile. I'm pretty sure that was the year we felt like he was decent. Like we felt like he was decent defensively.
Yeah.
In
so his
2023,
his OAA. You want to know you want to guess what his OAA was last year? Don't look it up. Just guess.
So in 2023, it was negative 8, which was 4 percentile.
Yeah, he was
right?
negative 6.
4 percentile.
He was negative 6 last year,
which was 8 percentile, which means the last 2 years he was in the bottom 8% of fielding, which I would assume is the position. It's just that position.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And so when you look at that and say, of course you want to upgrade, dude, I don't care if they brought in some mediocre hitter. If they could move Devers to DH and the guy was like an upgrade over, let's say, Yoshida or the other DH options overall, yeah, they should have moved on from him from the defensive position. And like that's really what it comes down to for me. It's like, dude, I could see like if Devers was like a mid-tier, like average defensive player and they were trying to push him off. But like, dude, you suck defensively.
Right. And what's really
defensively
and here's I chuckle whenever I think about this. If you were to go back and watch like legitimate tape on Devers defensively at third, he makes some of the most like ridiculous plays defensively.
Yeah.
But the
usually
routine
choppers.
Like the chopper ranging to his left, like diving, like I don't think he moved very well to his right. I think all of his diving plays were to his glove side. But if you were to watch a highlight reel of him fielding routine ground balls, you'd swear to God he was a blind kid with pancakes for hands.
Yeah, he's backwards. He makes the hard plays look easy and the easy plays look hard.
It's like you watch it and you're like, like I would watch some of like the way and the ways that he would boot balls, and I want to say I want to say it was in 2023 because Matt and I think touched on this last year. And it may have actually been 2024. I'll have to go back and look. One of the recent years, he actually had a worse jaw. He had a worse. I don't know how I want to word this. His worst fielding skill was his arm. I want to say last year he made 11 errors and 9 of them were throwing. And for his career, it's a little bit more than 50-50. I think that kind of skewed the number. I think if you look
Hey,
at his
you know what could help? He
um,
went to a position where he doesn't have to throw the ball.
correct. But I think if you looked at his career, I want to say of all his errors, he had like 3 or 4 more throwing errors than fielding errors, which is skewed by that like 9 out of 11 errors were throwing one year. But it's like, yeah, you look at him do things and you're like, I feel like high school kids make that play 99 times out of 100. Matt, one last thing, and then I'll give the floor back. It's funny that you brought up 2022. In 2022, and I'm guessing this is why you did this. 2022 was his best fielding percentage year of his career.
Yeah, because I remember that season where we were like, oh my god, like if this was what he was defensively, it would have been like a somewhat different story, a different argument. Now he still wasn't that great.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
At a level
sorry, I was gonna say I actually have the numbers in front of me. So obviously he has no defensive innings this year because he's been DHing. So last year 12 errors, 9 were throwing. But historically speaking, it's way more of a 50-50 split. So 2023, 11 throwing, 8 fielding. I'm sorry, 11 fielding, 8 throwing. No, I'm sorry, I had it backwards. Last year was 9 fielding, 3 throwing errors. In 2022, it was the other way around. He had 5 fielding, 9 throwing errors. So for his career, and this is the scary part, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in 6, call it 7 full seasons. I'm combining the fact that he only played 56 games as a rookie and then 57 in the COVID year. So if you combine that and say that that's 1 full season, in 7 full seasons, he has 141 errors.
Yikes.
75 with the glove, 66 with the arm.
Is that 20 a year?
So in 951 games, he had 141 errors. 951.
Yeah, that's not good, Jim.
Divided by 141.
That's not good, Jim. And
so that's an it's an average. Oh, that doesn't. It's an oh, wait a minute. Hold on. That's an average of 1 error every 6 games.
It's pretty bad.
It's not good, Jim.
Not good, Jim. 6.7 games actually.
One a week.
So hold on. So if that's every 6 games, so let's do this.
Well, wasn't it 7 seasons? You said
162 divided by 6.7. It's an average of 24 errors a season.
Yeah, you said 7 seasons and 141 errors. 20.
Yeah, and that's based on 162 games, which actually I don't know if that's correct because he's only ever had more than 20 errors 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't and it's kind of skewed because in 2017 in 56 games he had 14 errors, and in 2020 in 57 games he had 14 errors.
Jesus.
So that kind of makes so between those 2 seasons, what's that? 113 games. He had 28 errors in 113 games between those 2 seasons.
Good.
Yeah.
So that
that
makes sense. Yeah. Over 160 games. 24.
We realized that he was a really bad third baseman. He was still the face of the franchise. The reason, if Sam Kennedy, if you wanted to care about PR and your fan reaction, you and John Henry, then get a good return for him. Get some kind of return for him. That's really the thing that I keep going back to. Is like, yeah, okay, I can wrap my head around the fact that you had to trade him away because he was being a bitch about it. Breslow was being a bitch about it on his side. John Henry wanted to cut payroll, whatever. But then you go out and you get what in return? 2 middling pitchers, and I know Bailey has some history with them because of his time in the Giants, but that's the thing that I can't wrap my head around is the return that we got for them.
I don't think the return was anything great, but I will say I think that fans as a whole very much overestimated what Devers' value is. for a couple of reasons. One being, well, he sucks defensively, and teams prefer not to have a player that is generally locked into the DH position.
No,
Two,
better than the two.
there are how many teams in the league that are willing to take on a $250+ million contract? Maybe a dozen would consider it.
I don't even think it's that high. I think you're.
Yeah, I would say maybe 8.
I think that's.
Maybe 8.
I think you'd be lucky to find 6 teams that'd be willing to take on that.
Okay,
take
6.
that on.
And how many are willing to do it in the middle of the season?
Probably all. Probably all 6 of them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say all 6.
So okay. So let's use the Devers thing as an example. List the teams that realistically would in a vacuum. Realistically, what type of team would make this deal? The Yankees would make this deal. You're not trading him to your division rival.
The Mets.
Blue Jays were interested.
The Blue Jays were interested. Maybe, but again, you're not likely to trade a guy within the division. The Phillies, the Mets, maybe.
The Padres,
the Braves,
the Braves.
But like
the Braves were interested, and they were one of the teams that would have given you a better package, but would have had to eat some money.
That's
why John Henry said
no. Is that confirmed?
It was on Twitter, and
the Sox wanted Murphy, Ozuna, and 2 prospects.
Yeah,
and the
Braves
didn't say
which prospects.
Okay,
but.
so
the Braves eventually said, "Never mind."
Yeah, I didn't hear any specifics. But
which side note, if we got Ozuna, I would have fucking killed someone.
Imagine having him and Chapman on the same team.
Yeah.
So, well, that and the fact that you were getting rid of 1 DH to acquire somebody who literally only plays DH. So Matt would have been pissed because you traded one guy who's locked into the DH position for another guy who's locked in the DH position. But yeah, but then you look at it and go, okay, like how many of those teams are going to offer you the package you're looking for? So again, it comes down to, I don't know as if there's a ton of teams willing to make the deal and take on the money, because Devers is owed. Is it? I'm guessing it's right around $2
million.
Okay, hence why you said 250. That makes sense. But like realistically, there's not that many teams. Like it's the number of teams that would trade for a guy like Devers is always lower than you think.
And in the middle of the season, when there's they already filled out their team, like how many of them have that type of need right now, where they will, or have the flexibility where ownership says, yeah, we can add another 20, probably $18 million to the payroll for this year at the tax.
Or you wait till the off season. Like you didn't have to trade him. You wanted.
I mean, holding on to him, I guess, is an option, but that doesn't seem like it was really working out that way.
Breslow felt like he had to trade him, but he really just wanted to trade him.
There's a chance that ownership forced it.
Probably, they probably wanted to buy an NBA team or do something stupid and have to cut payroll here.
So one of the things I'll add in, and this is something that I had thought about. I haven't heard it mentioned elsewhere, not to say that it hasn't been talked about, but an angle of this that I started to think about was when I started to contemplate, be like, okay, like why now? That was it was why are we trading Devers? Then it was okay. It's obviously surrounding all the turmoil, but then it's like, okay, but why now? And that was an aside from the like, oh my God, like the return is terrible. But the why now, and I came to this idea that it's like, okay, let's play this scenario. The Red Sox are based on how they've been playing the season, I'm going to say it. They're on a hot streak. They've won what, like 8 out of 10. They beat Seattle today, so they've won 2 out of 3 in 3 out of the last 4 series, and that other series they swept the Yankees. So that's 2, 4, 6, 9. So they've won 9 of their last 12 games. They're 2 games over 500. Yeah, 2 games over 500. They're in the playoff spot, right? So play it out, right? Like say they ride the wave. It's July 10th, 11th, 12th. They're still rolling, and you're within a week or 2 of the trade deadline, and the Red Sox are 10, 11, 12 games over 500. They're pressuring the Yankees for the division, and they're solidly in the wild card hunt. How on earth can you trade Devers at the deadline if you're sitting there at, I'm trying to think, what's the deadline? 90 games in? So let's just say you're sitting there at, 45 and 32, or whatever the number is.
You
It's
keep
more
him.
than 90 games in.
You don't have to trade him. You wanted
So-
to trade him.
Correct, but
Well,
like,
no,
but
Ben,
say,
I
say,
agree with what you said.
say ownership went to Brezzo and they were like, we need you to figure out a trade for Devers because we want him off the team, and they have the conversation and they go, okay, like, we've won 7 out of 8 or 9. We just swept the Yankees. Like, we're going on a run. Like, I wonder if that was part of the conversation. If they went, well, what happens if we keep going on a run? We can't trade Devers at the deadline if we're pushing for a division title.
Then you
So-
get someone who can stand up to John Henry and stop hiring
So-
yes men. This is what happened with Dombrowski and Mookie Betts in
Yeah, but you
2019. He
can't-
said, "No, I'm not doing it."
I just wonder if
Standing
that
up
was.
to a
I
person
wonder.
only matters if they have, like John Henry makes the decision.
John Henry sucks. I hate him.
Yeah.
You can stand
And I
up to
just-
John Henry all you want, but John Henry still makes the decision.
I guess Dombrowski got fired the year after he said no to him, so that is fair. But
Yeah, but I look at it and I go, like, I wonder if that was the if that was one of the factors that ownership looked at Breslin and was like, hey, like, we need you to do this now because the optics of us doing this at the deadline, if we're legitimately making a run at a division
It's
title,
even
and cost,
worse.
it's way worse. Like, I wonder if they looked at it and said, it's going to be way worse if we trade him later and we're on a massive hot streak than doing it now. Like, I just wonder how much, like,
Well, that and
if that
and I think part of it is like like Ben, you're absolutely right. Like that's part of it, but it's on top of that.
Can you say that again?
No.
I'm
on
married.
top of that,
I'm a married man. I don't hear Ben. You're absolutely right. Ever. I shouldn't say ever.
Yeah.
It's a rarity when you're married.
but no, you
Just kidding.
like you were somewhat right. I get it now.
Well, now you're
They
back.
also needed.
suspension.
They also needed to go into this and say, like, if we feel like it's not going to get fixed, let's just get it done for A, the reason you said, but B, also so that they, over the next 4 to 6 weeks, can really figure out the identity of what they're going to be, in the sense that, are they going to be a competitor, but also what do they have and what do they need? Right. So we're going to get more play. We're going to get, by default, a little bit more playing time for everybody. Yoshida is supposedly going to get fast track back now. Now that he can be he could probably, I think the plan is to platoon him with Refsnyder at DH, which I think is a great idea.
Can't wait to have a lefty hitter that can't hit versus lefties, and he won't.
yeah,
He'll
spikes him into the ground a foot in front of home plate.
Yoshida will only bat versus righties.
Yoshida should be working at Starbucks. Oh no! Wait a minute. I'm going to take a page out of Will Campbell's book. Yoshida should be working at Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah.
because as much as Matt Couture loves his K rate, walk rate ratios, and the fact that he has a, by today's standards, respectable batting average, Yoshida is not a roster worthy player.
He can't bring himself to say that Chaim Bloom made a bad signing.
Yoshida is
the fact that
solid hitter, but he's a shitty defender. Altogether, he's a below average player.
So it's funny.
As a bat, he's absolutely above average hitter.
I knew that when the Yoshida negotiations were taking place, and the fact that Scott Boras closed the negotiating window 5 minutes after getting the Red Sox offer, I immediately was like, yeah, we massively overpaid for this guy.
Everyone.
Because Scott Boras doesn't close negotiating windows, which means that when the Red Sox were like, oh, hey, here's $18 million a year, he went, holy fuck, those guys are morons. Sign before they change their mind.
Those guys being
Scott Boras has poorly played the market multiple times in the last few years. But yes, you are correct.
Yeah, but for every time for every one player where he poorly plays the market for, he hits a grand slam with the market 8 other times.
I mean, he usually just has big ticket guys that play it out how it should be. I don't know. But anyways. The thing with that is, we're going back to the deadline and when they traded, is now they get to establish where they are and what they're going to be the rest of the way. Yes, they do also free up a ton of money, so that if they do fall off the wheels,
money that John Henry will just put in his pocket and not spend on players.
Yeah,
can't
that's
wait.
if you believe they're actually going to make a move.
Can't wait
Correct,
for that. Can't wait for that.
If they do fall off, that they are below the tax at the very least. But if they want to add, they in theory have money that they weren't going to spend. They were already going to spend on Devers. They can now use elsewhere. But that's the in addition to what you were saying, in my opinion, one of the biggest things here is now they're going to be able to really kind of see where they stand with some of these younger guys and go into the next few weeks and being able to decide, by early July, mid-July, and saying, like, this is what we need and this is what we're going to go and get. John Heyman insinuated that he does think they're going to add another bat. We'll see if that's true. They obviously could use another bat. The answer is, where does that bat play?
Currently,
right?
Currently he wears a Chicago Cubs uniform, and his name is Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
Well, I meant at the trade deadline.
He plays in Chicago, and his name is Kyle Tucker. No, I'm just kidding.
The Cubs are in first place in their division. They're not trading Kyle Tucker.
It's odd that I bring him up only because he's a left-handed hitting corner outfielder, and the Red Sox have 75 of those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, but like that's a guy that you would look at and see,
you make room for Kyle Tucker.
Do you make room for him, and how do you do that? How do you do that? Is you either you would have to trade. You would have to trade multiple outfielders.
Duran and Rafaela.
No, you'd have to trade Abreu. You can't not trade Abreu if you're trying to bring Kyle Tucker.
I guess they don't really have a center fielder.
So you would have to trade.
Yeah, you probably have to trade Abreu and then Duran or Rafaela.
Correct, and then whoever you don't trade is your center fielder because Kyle Tucker is in right field. But other than that, like just looking at the free agents and their projected like market values, like there's really not much available on the market. So based on projected market value, Kyle Tucker leads the way at almost $44 million a year, according to Spotrac. That we all know that those numbers are lower. Like Kyle Tucker will get more money than that, but like the next crop of guys are all older. Now Tucker's going to be 29 a year from now, but you've got Pete Alonso who's going to be 31. Bregman will be 32. He's got an opt-out, which may be a conversation for another day because I feel like we could talk for another hour and 12 minutes on what they're going to do with that, of what they can and maybe should do with Bregman this season.
Well, so to finish it up though, finish this whole episode in general, we talk about if they add a bat back, right? Where is that bat playing?
Positionally?
Yeah. Like where are you looking? Like
I mean, depending on who's on the market, I think you will look at first base. Because while Abraham Toro and Romy Gonzalez have been good collectively, they've been good at first base. I don't think that, from 4,000 feet, you look down at Fenway and go, the Red Sox don't need a first baseman.
Okay. Yeah. First base and probably, I guess. Not even second base because you're gonna need to move Mayer over to 2B, probably.
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Because you figure like Bregman comes back, so you can. I mean, there's multiple directions you could go in, right? So Matt and I know you and I talked about like what do you do with Trevor Story? Like, if you eat some of that money, do you have the ability to move him in a trade? And this is all predicated on the idea that they're not contending at the deadline. So that obviously would open up Mayer going back to his natural position. When Bregman comes back, if Trevor Story's still here and healthy, then Mayer naturally it would make sense to move him to second, and then maybe you DH Campbell or you mix Campbell in the outfield, just to give him an opportunity. Just because obviously, given that he's a middle infielder already, I would suspect that Marcelo is a better second baseman than Campbell is. Again, Campbell played second in the minors, but my gut tells me that Mayer's probably a better defensive option at second base over Campbell.
I don't think it's your gut. I think it's your brain.
Brain, but like
your eyes.
Well, and I'm basing that off of
Mayer played a little bit of 2B as well,
and I know that Campbell struggled at second. He's been a lot of on the job training, but like, unless they go in unless they move like Duran or Abreu for pitching and open up an outfield spot to then go acquire somebody else at the deadline, like first base tops that list for me. Like, I mean, if you're talking offense, I mean, they need all the pitching help in the world because other than Crochet and then random starts from Bayo, Giolito, and Bueller, and I'll give Dobbins his due. Dobbins to me feels like, you know, he could slot in to be like a legitimate mid-rotation guy.
Yeah.
But like you can never have enough. You can never have enough starting pitching. I feel like the back end of the bullpen is starting to take shape.
Yeah.
Like Whitlock's been really good. Chapman's been nails all season. The problem is though is that Weisert's been good. Couple of hiccups, but for the most part, good. Bernardino good, although it feels like they run him out there every night. Like the guy's arm's going to fall off at some point if they don't give him a day off. The trouble is though, is like in this scenario, right? We're talking about deadline deals if they're not contending. Chapman might be the first guy they trade if they're not contending at the deadline, because you're going to get
you got to ship out Chapman.
You'll get a decent return. You're not going to get. I know we kind of beat this horse to death a couple episodes ago about the value and you could get for a closer mid-season, just for the fact that, you know, he's basically throwing, at least in the last 5 years, probably his best season.
Statistically, it's the best year of his career right now.
Even more so than like his Reds days.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like the lowest ERA at this point and like the best K rate maybe.
Oh wow.
Or K to walk rate or something like that.
But in any case,
there's also the fact that if they go and make these type of moves, if they're selling, then they can go in and unload. But if they're buying, they also have enough depth in pitching where, at least now that they added Harrison as well. And speaking of Harrison, I saw a thing today that if they're going to keep him, they're going to use the next 3 weeks to tweak some stuff with him. But also, if they keep him in the AAA through July 4th, they get an extra year of control on him too. Which all things considered, I will easily do.
I love how part of that the Zoom call was that Breslow said we have development opportunities with Kyle Harrison.
Yeah, dude.
And like I vomited. I'm like, you traded the face of your franchise so that you could acquire a guy that has development opportunity, who for the record already spent 3 years in Andrew Bailey's system and couldn't figure it out under Andrew Bailey in three seasons.
Yeah, he was only in the majors for 1.5 under Bailey.
I understand that, but it's Bailey's vision, and he was in the Giants system for 3 years under Andrew Bailey's pitching development program, and he couldn't figure it out.
Well, did they change? Did they change the pitching after he left?
What do you mean?
Bailey left after 2023.
Yeah, so presumably they have a
Harrison was only in the majors for a quarter of 2022 and 2023.
Let's not pretend that prospects don't follow the same development plan as Major League Baseball players.
Oh I'm saying that. He was very good. He was very good as a prospect.
Kyle Harrison doesn't have a breaking ball. That I wouldn't call that very good.
No, like, I'm talking numbers wise, he was really good as a prospect.
Like, I'm 38 and pitch in front of my mirror, and I can throw a curveball.
Oops.
Yeah, you shut up your camera, not your mic. But anyway, so I mean, to kind of button that point up is like the return was poor, but like the thing with and just I brought up his stats because you talked about Chapman having theoretically a career year, and I mean, holistically probably he has a 1.50 ERA, which would be a career best if he finishes there. Only other season he finished with a sub-2 ERA was in 2012. He had a 1.51 ERA. He has a 2.7 walks per 9, which would be a career best. Ks per 9 is a career low if he finishes with the number he has now, which is a 12.6. His strikeout to walk ratio would be one of his best seasons. He's sitting at 4.67. 1, 2. Only 3 other times did he have a K to walk ratio of higher than 4.67. So holistically, yeah, having a career year. I mean, he's 37 years old. The Ks are going to go down because he's throwing like 98 to 100, not 103, 104. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, here's what I will say about Kyle Harrison. He better figure it out relatively quickly. Because if, say, by the time he's 25, 26, which in the grand scheme of things, 2 to 3 years for a pitcher is pretty quick. Not many guys make that kind of a rise through a minor league system. I mean, if he to feel good about this trade, he'd have to be like a legit number 2 behind Garrett Crochet when he hits
part of it would depend on what Tibbs and the other guy would end up being.
So
if Tibbs ended up being a good major leaguer too,
James Tibbs is never going to play baseball at Fenway Park wearing a Boston Red Sox uniform. I guarantee it.
Oh, I mean, probably not. But if you turn around and deal him somewhere else, then that's part of the equation.
Yeah. Which the last thing about the return that I'll hammer home is the fact that they acquired another left-handed hitting corner outfielder.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so this move, Breslow admits did not make the team better. He didn't say made the team worse. He just said it did not make the team better. Which is a way of saying that he made the team. He made the team worse. He didn't create a ton of flexibility within the roster because James Tibbs is still blocked. So he would have to turn into a better than Roman Anthony prospect or you'd have to trade Abreu in order for James Tibbs to sniff Fenway.
In fairness, I will say, other than maybe first base, kind of every position is sort of blocked. The entire outfield is blocked. You have Campbell and Mayer on the infield.
We don't have a true center fielder, but yeah.
Like most positions are kind of blocked. But anyways, just to kind of wrap it up, one thing I noticed, so Harrison's time with Bailey in the majors was only 7 games. He's only been in the majors for not even 2 full seasons. But one thing I noticed was in the minors, and now it's part of, I guess, the competition. But in the minors, this guy was a guy that was striking out. In 2021, he had 14.3 strikeouts per 9. 2022, it was 14.8. 2023 was 14.5. He gets to the majors, that's down to 9.1, 8.5, and 9.5. So did something change? Is it the competition? I don't know. It looks like he'll get 3-ish starts, 4-ish starts down in the minors. They'll probably keep him there until July 4th or something like that. Because I know that's when they'll pick up the extra time. But they also got Fitz down there. And so I spoke about it today, and we don't really need to get into it, but they have to make a decision on Walker Buehler.
Yep.
They have too many.
I don't think he's tradable.
No, but I would throw him on the IL or put him in the pen. That's what you do. The fact of the matter is they have better options. Not that Fitz or maybe Harris. If Harrison comes up as mid-4 guy, that's better than what Buehler's been.
But realistically, who is solidly better than who has proven that they're solidly better than Walker Buehler other than Crochet and Dobbins? Really, I'm just saying that I don't think Buehler is specifically the odd guy out. Giolito's been just as volatile as Buehler.
No, Giolito had some bad starts, but then the highs of Giolito have been fantastic. We haven't. Yeah,
that's
Buehler's been mediocre all year long.
Yeah, he had a good stretch before he got hurt because he kind of started to turn it around. But the thing with I get that part of it. I just don't. I wouldn't specifically say that Buehler is the odd guy out of the rotation with the young guy. I mean, and who really knows?
At the moment, we'll see how things play out over the next couple of weeks. But if he comes out and has another stinker or two, and Fitz just went through 6 scoreless innings in AAA, how do you realistically keep Fitz down there while Buehler's letting up, going 4 innings, 5-6 runs a game? It's it just doesn't really make any sense to me.
Because you're not competing.
Of course they're competing. They're tied for the wild card.
No. What I'm saying though is that like, okay, so let me ask this question: do you expect them to be competing at the time of the deadline in 4.5, 5 weeks? Do you expect them to be a contender?
Yes.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
expect them
See,
to
I-
be. I expect
see-
them to be ready
see,
to
I-
mix.
See, I don't.
Why?
The
They're
team
playing
is.
some solid baseball right now. The pitching seems to be better lately. They're getting Bregman and Abreu back. Like, I understand, like they lost Devers, but like the team as a whole, you just said the bullpen's rounding itself out.
I just don't.
Like
Well, so here's the problem, right? The offense is not scoring runs, so I don't think that how they've been winning games lately is sustainable in the long run. I think that like if the offense can't score, and who knows how quickly
It's a good
Bregman
thing
is.
they're adding Bregman back.
I was gonna say, you bring Bregman back. He was their best hitter before going down, and then Abreu.
Quad injuries tend to linger. So I would not bank on him being healthy the rest of the season he could be.
Just have him hit a home run every time and walk around the bases.
But there's yeah, right. Hit a home run and just grab the wheelchair. Just bring the laundry cart back. Just stick the helmet on and push around the laundry cart around the bases. I just have questions over whether it's going to be sustainable because they're not going to be able to they can't based on how they're built. I don't think they're going to win 3-1, 4-1, 4-2 ball games over a lengthy period of time like they have been lately. I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong, but it brings, and I know I had mentioned
this.
No, but they have a lot of holes in their team. Like Connor Wong is a complete negative, complete no show. Like Christian Campbell's been nothing.
He might be more useless than Yoshida.
He's horrific. Which again, Mookie Betts, Heimblum, but like
Jeter Downs, we don't know if he's alive anymore.
You got a career 100 hitter for Mookie Betts time. That's neither here nor there. But like they do have a lot of negatives in this lineup. You bring a guy like Bregman and Abreu back, and those guys go hit the bench again. Like there won't be everyday players. Same thing with Christian Campbell. Hopefully he can either figure it out or goes back down to AAA once these guys come back up. Like there's some players that will be coming back that will definitely provide more than what you're getting now from some of these guys. And I can't believe I'm actually becoming the more optimistic one in this conversation. I am historically down on the Red Sox.
All right, I guess we'll see. They're 2 games over 500 right now. The next 2 or 3 weeks will obviously decide a lot in how they play it out. They could go on a big sell where they go out and move Bregman, Story, Chapman, like all these guys. They could, but they also could be looking for another pitcher, another bat, like you said, a right-handed pitcher, a right-handed hitting first baseman.
They should be looking for pitching.
Yeah, we'll be right there. But we'll see how it goes. But all right, that's gonna wrap it up for this week. We basically did an hour and a half straight on Rafael Devers. A little longer than I expected, but
Matt needs a nap.
A few rants.
Yeah. No, I really like I always say we go longer than expected. At this point, I should just lower my expectations of how quick we get through things. But any final words, Boston sports, Devers, other than
do you want to state your take?
If you want, go ahead.
I don't really have one other than fuck Breslow, but go ahead, Benny.
So mine is that Alex Bregman will be traded by the Boston Red Sox between now and the trade deadline. Only because I do not expect. So I want one of two things to happen. Ideally, rip up the current contract and offer him something like 4 years and $130 million with no opt-outs, or defer the opt-outs to the end of that deal. I'd have to check on his age. I want to say he's 31 next year. So maybe give him a chance to opt out after 32 or 33 to get one last medium length deal. But if you can't agree to a longer guaranteed contract, because as we all know, he can opt out at the end of the season. If they don't have a newer guaranteed contract that keeps him in a Red Sox uniform beyond 2025, I kind of want them to move Alex Bregman, especially if he returns before the All-Star break and rakes again. I think you would get a good return from him, a good return for him. And I think Bregman has a ton of leverage when it comes to how things are going because he's the best thing they have offensively. So I fully expect Alex Bregman to wear a different uniform post trade deadline, which is unfortunate. But given how things have unfolded, that's what I believe to happen. Because the alternative to that is letting him walk at the end of the year. Because if they don't move him and he's not extended with a guaranteed deal, I give it like a 95% chance he opts out and plays for a different organization, and we would be losing him for nothing.
Fair enough. I mean, if they're looking to be sellers at the deadline, then yeah, they should move them.
I
But,
think.
yeah, I mean,
I think even if they're contending, they should consider trading him. If the deal is right, even if they're contending, trade him. Because if
you get rid of your 2 top hitters.
dude, you just talked about how bad it would look if you traded Devers. If you then go play another few weeks of good baseball, you're in contention, and they sit there and say, "Yeah, fuck you, fans. We don't want to contend." That'll be even worse. That'll be even worse than the Devers because it's a straight up middle finger to the fans of saying we are literally giving up on this.
We
season.
don't care about winning. We care about our bottom line and our portfolio.
To be fair, how is that any different than what it's been for the last 5 years?
Because all they do is lie to us, but all they've been saying is
finally. If you at the deadline, you're a contender, and you just dump. Like in prior years, it was hit or miss. Like we could be sellers, we could be contenders. Like some of them were in the middle. If they're like looking at they're in like the second wild card spot, and they just go and trade away Bregman at the deadline and don't add any type of notable piece back.
Well, first of all,
I didn't straight up.
Somebody would be lining up at the door to.
To be fair, I didn't say for a bag of chips. I just said consider trading Devers. Consider trading Bregman. Because if you got, say, a legitimate major league player under control and a prospect, at least you.
I guess we're playing hypothetical there.
No, but I'm saying is like, but if I mean that's what they should have done with Devers. But I think that even if you're contending, if you can't, and you don't have assurances that Bregman is going to stay, you have to trade him. Because you're probably in all likelihood not winning a World Series, and he would walk for nothing. So that's why I'm saying you have to consider trading him.
The offer would have to be absurd for me to trade him while they're a contender. It would be such a fu to like you're not even just the fans, your players. Mm-hmm. Hey, you're like the second wild card spot. You're playing some good baseball. Like. We're right in the mix. Oh, by Bregman, the guy that seems to be leading and being a good leader and taking the young guys under his wing, and it would be a disaster. I would lose my goddamn shit. But all right. I like it.
So would I, but I don't. But based on recent history, I wouldn't rule it out. Doesn't mean I wouldn't be pissed, but I don't. But like. After the situation of the Devers trade, would it really shock you if we woke up on trade deadline day and it was Red Sox trade Alex Bregman, and I'm just not that he would go to the Giants, but like if it's like Alex Bregman traded for Matt Chapman and Bryce Eldridge, like that kind of a package, would you wake up and be like?
I mean, it obviously depends on depends on the trade, obviously, because like I guess they could get a certain package back, but like In essence, if they were a contender and they traded Bregman, I would, even under Henry, I would be shocked because like that would be just like that would be next level of just like
nothing past them.
Yeah,
I'd be pissed, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know. All right, that's gonna wrap it up.
I don't care about.
We just went another 5 minutes after saying that we were done. All right, that's gonna
dog walking.
That's gonna. Yeah, my dogs are sitting there staring at me because they need to go outside. But that's gonna do it for us this week. I think we'll do one more week next week before our summer break. We'll dive into. I want to dive into a little bit of Celtics next week. Obviously, the finals will be over. We'll So we'll have a pretty good idea. I mean, the NBA offseason comes up very quickly. We'll have some rumors probably starting to fly next week and the week after in the NBA, so we'll get into that. And then, maybe we'll do a little bit of Patriots. Maybe something big happens. I don't know. They make a trade or something like that. But all right. I'm not giving Ben final word. Any final words, Zach?
No, I've said all my rants and thoughts today. I'll get them out.
Likewise.
All right. Long story short, both sides deserve blame, but Red Sox fans are giving Devers, I think, too easy of an out in all this.
Breslow is to blame for
and I think by the end of this episode, Ben has creaked a little bit more towards the middle than he did at the start.
Nope, 70% blame on ownership.
He won't admit it, but it's at least 69 now.
Nice.
I'm removing him so he can't stop me. No.
Then he left because you were giving him.
All right. Goodbye. Thanks for listening. We'll raise the banner.
Later, boys.